Thank you very much, Councilmember James and Councilmember Levin. Good morning, everyone. Today's announcement highlights the urgent need for additional preparation in advance of the opening of the Barclays Center Arena less than 4 months from today. In sports facilities across the country that are hosted next to residential communities, governments have established policies and regulations that protect neighborhood character and quality of life. The proposals put forth in the Barclays Center Neighborhood Protection Plan are modeled after similar policies in cities like Newark, Washington, D.C., and Chicago. We would like to thank Council Members James and Levin for taking a leading role in starting a public dialogue on what is necessary for Brooklyn to receive similar protections. We look forward to working with them, our state elected officials, city and state agencies, and the arena owners and operators to ensure that events at Barclays Center work for patrons and residents alike. Now, I'd like to review some of the provisions of the Neighborhood Protection Plan. The 9 areas of the plan are arena operations, public safety and crowd control, pedestrian circulation, sanitation, open space, traffic and parking, transportation demand management, citizen information and communication, and documentation, monitoring, accountability, and oversight. I'm only going to highlight some of the key provisions. I would like to suggest that you all get a copy of the full Neighborhood Protection Plan, which is available here at the press conference and also online. But with respect to arena operations, Barclays Center must adopt and enforce a code of conduct for arena patrons, which will include a cutoff of alcoholic beverage sales inside the arena, not only prior to the end of Nets games before the start of the third quarter, but also at least 1 hour before the end of all other events, with an absolute maximum cutoff of 10 o'clock. Policies for the use of the interim plaza west of the arena must adhere to New York City noise regulations, and lighting must be directional so that a minimum of light escapes the area after 11 o'clock p.m. Barclays Center must establish and enforce rules for hours of operation and access to the loading dock to prevent trucks from queuing and disrupting traffic on Dean Street and Flatbush Avenue. The broadcast support station must be operated so vehicle idling, generators, and lighting do not impact residences. And finally, arena and event-related vehicles and equipment must not be staged on residential streets or sidewalks. With respect to public safety and crowd control, the 78th Precinct should be responsible for the arena, as well as enforcement of traffic and parking rules, protection of pedestrian safety, and regulation of public behavior in the surrounding neighborhoods that will be impacted by the arena. This responsibility zone should extend in a half-mile radius from the outside edges of the arena block. The 78th Precinct must be responsible for pedestrian safety between the arena parking lot on Block 1129, the Long Island Railroad Terminal, and the 4 subway stations within 1/2 mile of the arena. And Barclays Center must be responsible for snow removal on sidewalks between the arena and the 6 pedestrian collectors, in particular the parking lot. With respect to sanitation, Barclays Center should provide additional street baskets within the half-mile zone around the arena block, and must empty street baskets and cleat streets within the zone by 8 o'clock on each day after an arena event. With respect to open space is cited as an impact of the arena in the short term before the construction of Phase 2 of the project. Forest City Ratner should deliver on the Atlantic Yard site permanent and public accessible open space early in the project, timed to the creation of residential housing. In the meantime, annual funding, as established by the New York City Parks and Recreation Department, should be provided for a permanent Parks Association position to serve the 2 existing impacted open spaces near the arena, namely the Dean Playground and South Oxford Park. With respect to traffic, New York City Department of Transportation must install signage clearly directing pedestrian and vehicle traffic, including directing vehicles to use arterial roads, not residential side streets. And DOT, in conjunction with local elected officials and community boards, must establish regulations for shuttle and charter buses, taxis, black cars, and dollar vans servicing the arena patrons. The New York Police Department must enforce these regulations, as well as parking laws and regulations for double parking, parking at hydrants, and the like, and residential parking permits if applicable. With respect to transportation demand management, TDM measures should be in effect for all Barclays Center events, not just Nets games. And New York State must authorize and New York City must implement a robust residential parking permit program to disincentivize arena patron use of private vehicles. New York City DOT must price and regulate metered parking on and near commercial streets in order to preserve parking for patrons of local businesses. And the state and city must enact an arena parking tax surcharge on all hourly parking lot and garage use within a half mile of the arena during all arena events. Now, all of this only works if there's ongoing communication, monitoring, and evaluation during the process. And so the Neighborhood Protection Program provides that Barclays Center will establish an on-site communications coordination office that can address ongoing comments and concerns from local residents. And finally, the NPP requires continuing oversight and review. A full-time staff person employed by the state should oversee implementation of the NPP and monitor its performance. Initially, this may be a position within the Empire State Development Corporation or another state agency, but in the future, this function should be incorporated within an ESDC subsidiary, providing oversight for the Atlantic Yards project, and that entity should include outside directors appointed in conjunction with local elected officials. So that's a quick summary of the provisions of the Neighborhood Protection Program, and would like to turn it over to my colleagues from Boerum Hill and Park Slope.